1. I work as an EMT for an ambulance company. EMS has always been full of superstitions, and most of us believe in the supernatural on account of all the crazy, gruesome stuff we get to see on any given shift. Every company, every EMT, every firefighter has a story about a station that is haunted or something that happened to them that can only be explained as paranormal. For the company I work at, we have about 5 stations, each with their own stories. Only 1 or 2 scary stories, though. Mostly things like employees seeing shadows out of the corner of their eyes, getting uneasy feelings in the stations, or hearing an unexplained knock, voice, or being hissed or growled at occasionally. The station I work at is no different. The station I work at is our main station, meaning that is where we keep all our extra resupply. So it is not uncommon for various crews to be going in and out of the station at all hours of the day. It was common knowledge that the ambulance bay was creepy at night, and people report hearing voices, footsteps, or ambulance doors opening and closing out in the garage. Now, I've worked at this station for 2 years, and I've heard these things, but it's always been easy to dismiss this as my partner doing something out in the bay, or another crew doing some late-night resupply. The only experience I've had there that I couldn't explain was I was distinctly growled at in the garage late one night. At that time, I quickly realized that the only person in the bay was me, and I certainly didn't growl at myself, and quickly left. That was all I ever experienced there, and for the most part, felt very comfortable at the station. Until last night. The station is small and consists of a living room with a kitchenette attached to a hallway. This hallway led to the garage on one side, the bathroom on the other, and at the end of the hallway is a door leading to the junior's bedroom, which you can then walk through to get to the senior's bedroom. If you go into the garage, there is a staircase that leads into the attic that stretches above the entire living quarters of the station. Me, a junior, and my partner, a senior, are dead asleep in our respective bedrooms, all the doors closed. When I'm awoken to all these loud banging noises and the walls shaking, I realize that this banging isn't just banging but actually running. Something huge, heavy, and fast is stomping and running around in the attic upstairs. It is stomping and running so loud it is quite literally shaking the walls. Whatever it was must have been huge to have been making sounds this loud. Then it gets faster. It's so fast and loud it is running the entire length of the attic. It is moving faster than anything can move. The stomping is happening one right after the other. It almost sounded like there were 10 people up there, or a creature with too many legs running right above my head. It's so fast. It's too fast. I'm sitting upright in my bed now, huddled in the corner of the bedroom, absolutely horrified. I get this deep, visceral, primal feeling of dread, almost like what prey must feel like when they're being hunted, and suddenly it's as if a thought from somewhere else is placed into my mind. And I just know with every fiber of my being that it knows that I am awake, and that I know it's there. Like a sick, twisted version of that Spider-Man meme. In between the stomping and the running, I can hear this barking, whirling sound. It's hard to describe. Like a grunt mixed with the sound of wind. It's making this sound as it is running. I realize that it is moving so fast I can hear the wind it is creating, swooshing and whipping around it, and it is grunting as it is running. So now I very silently get up and walk over to the senior bedroom door and try to open it, but it's locked. I feel as though I can't make a noise or it will come through into the station and kill me. I'm quietly knocking on the door, I'm crying, pleading for my partner to let me in. I'm thinking, this is so loud, there's no way she's asleep, but she is. She's out cold, and I don't get a response. I decided that my partner had the right idea, and I crept over to the junior bedroom door, separating my bedroom from the hallway that leads to the garage and the rest of the station, and locked the door. So I silently creep back over to my corner in the bed with my blankets and begin to text her. It is 1:41, and I'm begging her to wake up over text and describing what I'm hearing. She's not answering, so I text her fiancé and ask him to call her and wake her up. But he's not answering either. It is at this point I decide to text my mom. As I'm sitting there, I get a similar feeling to before, an intense dread, a stark realization of pure truth. It doesn't even feel like my own thought, more like a piece of truth that was slipped to me by the universe. The thing upstairs is not human. I'm explaining to my mom what I'm hearing. All these loud, swishing wind sounds and stomping and running. Then I hear it run down the stairs. When I tell you, my heart stopped and my soul left my body. When I heard it coming down the stairs, my stomach dropped into my ass and I was nauseous. I genuinely thought I was going to die. I was waiting for it to start pounding on the door, and I've never been more thankful in my life. I thought to have it locked earlier. I was waiting for screaming or the door to start shaking or something. But it never came. It ran impossibly fast and hard back up the stairs. Up the stairs, down the stairs, across the attic, down the attic, above my head in circles, down the stairs, up the stairs, down the stairs, across the attic, down the stairs. It is going all over too fast. So now I'm absolutely hysterical on the phone with my mom. No one ever prepared me for dealing with being hunted and taunted by a demon. My mom is trying to calm me down. She asks me, "What do you want me to do?" I didn't know. I didn't know what she can do. I didn't know what to do. I just whisper, "I don't know what to do, just please don't hang up." She tells me to bang on my partner's door and wake her up, and I do. My partner wakes up and I hear rustling in her bedroom and she goes, "Yeah?" in a dismissive voice and slowly walks over to the door and opens it. I literally shoved her back into the room, whipped around faster than I ever moved in my life, closed the door and locked it. I explained to her everything I was hearing and we go sit on the bed. The activity is dying down now, but it is still active enough for her to hear the running upstairs too. It is now 2:45 a.m. Another crew gets off at 3 a.m. Got to our station, put their truck away and clock out to go home. Me and my partner huddled together, glued to each other's hips, hurried outside together to meet with them in the building parking lot. It is at this point that we realize that a completely separate crew from around 11 p.m. that night had not only left our truck full of medical equipment and drugs unlocked out in the parking lot, in an area known for being a not-so-great area, but also left our garage door open, giving literally just anybody access to our entire station. Me and my partner are terrified and aren't willing to go back into the station at this point. The crew that's getting off at 3 goes into the station to clock out, and when they come back out, they see us hanging out in our truck. They joke with us for a minute over the ghost and make fun of us for sleeping in the truck for the rest of the shift. We ask them if they heard anything, to which the senior on that crew, who has been there for a long time and staunchly believes in the supernatural, says, "Yeah, it definitely sounds like there's someone walking up there, but he's harmless." Me and my partner are just harmless? That thing is not harmless. They leave and we decided to call for PD to make sure that it wasn't some crackhead that had gotten in while the garage door had been left open. PD got there and searched very thoroughly and found no one and no evidence of anyone being there. It's 4 a.m., and we notify our dispatch that station was cleared to be safe by PD, and together we venture back inside. We elected to keep the truck in the parking lot, so we would have to go back into the garage if we got a call or needed to make a quick escape from the demon. And together we huddled together in the living room with all the lights on until we get off at 7 a.m. I heard a few minor bumps and bangs, but nothing crazy. Things that could be dismissed as house noises and whatnot. I barely slept, and I'm not looking forward to going back there later this week. Little update. It's nowhere near as crazy as what happened the last time I was here, but there was some activity during my shift today that I figured you would all like to hear. Most of the shift was perfectly fine. We were busy and out of the station most of the day, and a couple of times throughout the night. While we were in the station, though, there was some tension. The air was thick with our own anxiety, and I'm sure that this is what caused what I'm about to tell you. And for some context, out in the bay there is the cage. It is literally just a large metal cage that runs along the back of the garage, and it is where we keep all of our resupply. The door to the cage is supposed to always be locked. This is to prevent crews from going in and messing up the company inventory. The only people with keys to the cage are the supervisors, who don't come in until around 7 a.m. I was lying in bed. I was half awake, half asleep, just kind of staring up at the ceiling. when I heard what sounded like the cage door being intensely rattled by something. It didn't sound like someone was trying to open the door. It sounded like someone grabbed a hold of the door and just started violently shaking it. This went on for about a minute. I went to my partner's bedroom to see if she heard it, and found that she slept right through it. We sat there for about 30 minutes listening for it and nothing. It's 5:50, and I can hear distinct footsteps up in the attic. Nothing crazy like the insane marathon running from the other day, but quiet footsteps up there. My partner says she can't hear them, so I just go back into my room. It is 6:30 and I can still hear an occasional footstep up there, and to be clear, no one goes up there because it's creepy, and there is nothing up there. It's just some boxes and an extremely dark attic space. Because I was only hearing some footsteps, I decided to go out to the garage and investigate. When I get into the garage, the footsteps stop. There was no one in the garage. When I went over to the cage to try to recreate the noise I heard, I found that the door was open. I'm not totally convinced that it wasn't just a person opening the cage door a bit aggressively. The only problem with this is I have no idea who it would be, because as I said, there are only a few people who have the key to the cage, and none of them are here. And they don't get here for another few hours. I went back inside, and I could again hear the footsteps upstairs, and now it sounded like in the garage. I tried to record the footsteps, but they were too faint to pick up on the video. I also wanted to point out that the crew we met outside the other day that was making fun of us for hanging out in the truck had made comments about how he likes to do a resupply and to slam the cage door. Though I guess today he just wanted to rattle the door. I'm not totally convinced that what happened today was a ghost and not a person, but I'm also not totally convinced that it was a person and not a ghost. It is now 6:50. I get off shift in 10 minutes. I won't be back here for another 10 days, and I'd be lying if I said I was sad about it. 2. The weirdest thing just happened. I've been trying to sleep for the last 2 hours, but I was hot and uncomfortable. Pillows too flat, everything. But I eventually fell asleep. I then began to have this really vivid dream that I was at a small gas station in my local town, with about 10 people in the parking lot, 3 friends, 7 strangers. Then I noticed some weird stuff. I would be talking to a group, and every time I shifted my focus, something would disappear. First it was the people walking on the street, then the local music and street noise, then the cars, till eventually people from the group too. By the time it got to about 5 of us, we somehow just knew that it was almost as if we had the knowledge of its existence, but never noticed its presence, as it was always there. It was some sort of alien. It could communicate one-on-one with whomever it chose, even if we were all looking directly at us, as it could have multiple conversations at the same time. It seems like it could speak to some but not others, because even though we could tell it's there, only 3 of us could hear it. There was some resistance. For those of us it couldn't communicate with, it has to get closer in order for it to work. Everything and everyone who disappeared just vanished in the blink of an eye. When it got to about 4 of us, we ran inside the room. One of the strangers got brave and ran outside to confront it. He ran toward the chain-link fence to go out there and disappeared around the corner. It's the freakiest thing to see. You know the way you see someone disappear around the corner of a concrete wall when walking? You imagine that, but a see-through chain-link fence. Doesn't sound physically possible, but that's what happened. All of a sudden, we started hearing music playing outside, and the last guy who ran out's car starts rolling around the corner. Then the lights of the car shut off, and this loud banging is at the door. The door has a deadbolt, and just like everything outside it just vanished. Tyson opened the door. Stood in front of me was this creature, 6 foot tall, green and yellow, scaly but oily skin, deep-set black eyes. His head was very box-shaped and wise at the sides, but the body frame was shaped like a teenage boy's. The weird part of it was wearing human clothes, powder blue t-shirt and khaki cargo shorts. It was moving its lips and pointing angrily at us, but we couldn't understand it when I woke up suddenly. I woke up and could barely open my eyes, but they slowly got open. When I got them open, I was looking around my room. I put my head back in my pillow and closed my eyes. When I did close them, I covered my face and I could still see my room. The difference was I could see a black cloud hovering above me. You know the cloud you see when demons move around in the show Supernatural? It looked exactly like that, but a darker black, and it could stand in place and stuff. It stood there and just moved to my right and disappeared into my wall. I opened and closed my eyes again. This time, about 5 of these shadows were just hovering in a circle above me, like storm clouds, but that's all they did, hover. I just got up and washed my face and tried to make sense of what happened. Even through all that, I never felt anxious, afraid, nothing. I just felt comfortable, like whatever it was just watched but meant no harm. The only one that was different was the cloud that disappeared into the wall. It felt upset, but didn't want to or couldn't do anything. This is one of the strangest encounters I've had in years. Strange. 3. Please be aware the following story contains very brief references to animal mutilation near the end. In my 20s, in the Midwest suburbs, I was introduced to a playground called the Haunted Playground, that I didn't believe was haunted. After visiting at night with my friends and all of us having little creepy encounters, we started to hang out there semi-occasionally over a span of like 2 years. We even tried to bring other friends in there, and not tell them anything about the park to see if they also noticed the weirdness. A bunch of little weird things happened that I won't put here. Like one time we brought a friend and they refused to get out of the car suddenly and freaked out. But 3 things stand out. We brought a friend that also didn't know the place was haunted, and they were like, I keep seeing this thing pop up behind me, but it's just the park. And we're like, no way, dude. This place is the haunted playground. And the 3 of us start whisper arguing about it being haunted. Suddenly, right in the middle of our semi-circle argument, there's a bright triangle-shaped streak of light shoots down to the ground. It was like a weird moment that slowed down with all of us watching the silver light. The best way to describe it was like a slow-motion sword reflection of the moonlight, piercing the ground. Another time, with another group of friends, we heard someone stomping in the leaves, and it sounded like a human running towards us. And then this deer just walks out from behind a tree, all quiet and light-footed in the grass. A few minutes later, one of the friends suddenly starts to usher us out of the playground in a friendly but semi-urgent way, like putting hands on all of us and leading us out of the park. In my head, I was thinking that deer spooked him something good. So I kind of lagged behind a bit, just looking around to see anything. On the way out of the park, you have to pass the Park District Clubhouse, and I see someone on the roof of the clubhouse. As I strain my eyes for a moment, because for a second I'm like, oh, what's that guy doing on the roof? Almost like it could be normal for a second. But I notice the guy is all in the shadow. You can't see any details, just a head and torso, and his arm holding onto the chimney, holding himself up and crouching down behind the chimney, as if he doesn't want to be noticed, but also wrapped around it, as if he was peering around it to get a better look at us, and I think he has horns. We all got back into the car and I was like, hey, did you make us leave about the deer? And he doesn't want to say anything until we are way out of the neighborhood, but apparently, right after the deer, he noticed the guy with the horns on the roof of the clubhouse. Could not rationalize what he was seeing and just noped us all out of there as fast as he could. And then he freaked out that I also saw the dude and even noticed the horns. After the dude with the horns on the roof guy, we cut back on the visits and also discovered that you didn't need to actually go into the park to see any weird paranormal action. A girlfriend of mine went with me once after that, and we were both too chicken to get out of the car, so we parked facing the haunted playground, but over 2 blocks. We were smoking cigarettes and chit-chatting with the car off, lights off in the dark. The only streetlights on were in a block ahead of us, and on the sidewalk, the haunted playground is to the right. The conversation stops, and I'm just watching the street and I see something coming from the direction of the haunted playground. It's just a clear outline of a person walking. It was clearly a person walking, but you could see right through them. It was just like a weird, glowy outline of a person, but no person. So I whisper to my friend because I'm like freaking out about seeing a literal invisible person. I'm whispering right now because there's something out there freaking me out, and I don't want it to hear us. Do you see it? Oh, thank God you see it too. Tell me what you see so I know I'm not crazy. Person walking is not there. Yeah, what in the ever-living fuck is that? Are we seeing a will-o'-the-wisp right now? It's a will-o'-the-wisp. A bad thing. We just watched it walk off to the left, deeper into the subdivision. We waited about 5 minutes and then slowly and as quiet as possible turned on the car and left. But to this day, I have no idea about the guy with the horns and the invisible person, no person, or what they were. I don't know why this playground and the subdivision it is on is weird land, but the playground is connected to a forest that connects to a much larger forest, with some spots cut through the highways and other subdivisions. Growing up, all the weird stories came from the forest area behind the haunted playground area. Cut up deer parts arranged in a ritual sacrifice. That forest. Someone stole a cow from a couple of towns over and mutilated it, and guess where they found the head? The same forest. Thanks for listening. 4. I've become almost desperate for answers or shared experiences, so I can at least attempt to wrap my head around all this. It started roughly 11 or 12 years ago with the most intense dream I've ever had. In my dream, I was laying in bed, which was set against a window that was angled up my driveway and the neighbor's side of their house. There was an intense blue light shining into my window, and as I slowly sat up to look outside to see where the blue was coming from, I could make out a young girl in my driveway. I only made out shoulder-length black hair and light-colored pajamas. It was so lucid. I could think clearly, even it being a dream. I remember thinking to myself, maybe the neighbor girl got out. It was the dead of winter in northern Montana, so I was concerned for her. I shifted my focus to finding the source of the strong blue light, being amplified by the snow on the ground. I made no distinguishable source of light. Nothing from the sky, ground, nothing. As I was searching for the light, I lowered my eyes back down to the girl, who was a mere foot from my window staring at me. At least, I felt her stares. She had no face at all, no eyes, mouth, ear, nose. In my panic, I dropped to the ground, rolling off my bed. My flight or fight response kicked in. I ran to my living room where there was a storage closet near the entry. I grabbed a baseball bat from the closet, checked the door lock, and went to the center of my living room. The walls started bulging inwards. I could hear the drywall cracking. After one final heave, the walls exploded outwards, the debris stopping in midair as if time froze. That's when I saw several dozen of these beings in my yard. My best guess would be anywhere from children to adults. I felt something behind me, so I turned around, and the first girl was there and embraced me in a hug. I didn't feel peace, I felt sheer dread. I immediately woke up for real, covered in sweat and a panic. It all felt so real. Flash forward a few years, I'm in the military now, and during my time I was stationed in Germany. I took the opportunity to see my grandma who lives in Ireland, and she claims to be a pagan witch, a Wicca. I'm hoping I got that right. Anyway, she's a sweet old lady, but dabbles in some strange stuff. I don't necessarily believe in what she does, but she was someone I felt like I could talk to about the dream that I had a few years prior. It still haunted me, because since then I felt like unexplained things were happening to me more and more often. I wasn't a believer in ghosts, at least not until I was stationed in Hohenfels, Germany. Anyways, my grandma explained to me that it was a portal being opened to me in a different realm. Not a physical portal, but a portal in my mind and spirit. Again, I don't know if I believe in that. I've had some intense dreams of varying types. I've had so many experiences that I've become accustomed to it. However, last night was the last straw. Last night around 3 a.m., I woke up frozen in bed. I've heard of sleep paralysis, just never experienced it. I didn't have the normal feelings. I didn't feel a weight on my chest. I was just laying on my back and couldn't move. I don't know why. I thought of that Kill Bill scene, where she's buried alive and focuses on wiggling her toes and fingers first. So that's what I did. I don't know how long it took, yet it felt like an eternity. I wiggled my toes, then fingers, then head, eventually snapping out of it. My cat was staring at the corner. I saw the shadow of a giant spider on my wall, 18 to 24 inches large, body and legs of a daddy longlegs. I shot up and turned on my walk-in closet light because it's the closest. The light illuminated my wall, and clear as day the shadow was there, but no spider. I went to the main light, and as I was walking slowly, the shadow skirted a few feet to my window. As soon as the main light went on, the shadow disappeared, and my cat started looking around, as if he was wondering where it went. Finally, I noticed a faint blue glow at my window. Luckily, when I went to the window and opened my blinds, expecting to see something I thought I would never again, I saw my apartment neighbors across the street with their blue party lights on, with all their blinds opened. The sense of relief I felt was intense. I could go into more detail about why this is my breaking point, but that's just too much. I just wanted to give the start some middle ground and the latest. Does anyone have any experience with this? Is it possible that I'm attracting things? Do you think my grandma has any merit to what she says about portals and dimensions? I'm lost, scared, and confused. Even my multiple deployments didn't scare me this much. I have never been so desperate for answers. 5. I'm writing this in my car legitimately 15 minutes after this happened. I'm not going to act like I'm shaking or traumatized, but I do want to post about this in the hopes that someone could possibly offer clarity or similar experiences. I don't know if any of the details are important, so I'm going to try as much as I can to give as many details as possible. Had to go to the bathroom, and I'm at a park I hike the trails of in my spare time in Nashville, Tennessee, while working on stuff because it's pretty. Go to the bathroom. There's a guy in there in the small stall locked in standing. I go in the big one and sit down. It stinks bad like gasoline, and I realize it's coming from him. He's just slowly rocking back and forth on his butts. I literally don't hear anything, no breathing, no pissing, nothing, for around a minute. Then he flushes, and then stands there for another 30 seconds unmoving. As soon as I entered, I was filled with just this strange feeling of dread. Normally this park is a place of relaxation and refuge for me. Hence why I go there so often to do work. I looked up from my notes, and without seeing or hearing it, the man's feet had completely turned around, now facing the door of the stall. His feet were slightly poking out of the stall doors, and when I went back around the nature center to fill up my water bottle, I tested this to see, and just as I feared, my head would be around 2 to 6 inches away from the door in this position. Which won't make sense in a second, and further would just be very uncomfortable to stand in front of for an extended period of time. The door was closed. After this realization, he turned his feet. I'm focusing on the movement of his feet, but can still see the top of the stall in my peripherals, even though I can tell he's not standing on his tiptoes or anything. I can see the top of his head starting to move straight up and mechanically turn itself towards me, without the feet moving at all. His head was coming up from the middle of the stall, if anything towards the back near the toilet. Given his unmoving feet, this would place his head around a foot away horizontally from his feet. His head was not angling like when a person gets up from a sitting position. The movement was straight up, as if it was extending. The best I can compare it to is a submarine's periscope exiting the water to survey the area. I quickly look up and almost reflexively, I see the top of his head sink back down again, straight down, with no angle or bend. I only saw the top of his head sinking back down, but I was filled with this feeling like he had looked at me writing notes about him in the other stall, and right before the stumble, the headpiece went back into the stall. Then he legit almost falls over, but braces himself against the stall and starts making these just disturbing, almost animalistic noises. Like, this is probably going to sound funny, but the best way I can think of to compare it to is the sound the pufferfish makes when they put the carrot in his mouth, with these long sighs. I hear him sort of stumbling around making this noise, and then the sink turns on, and finally he leaves. It sounded like he was clinging to the walls as he walked, or more, thudded towards the sinks, and eventually out the door. I legit was going wild in my head, being like, the fuck? What if he's just acting like he's leaving? So I waited like 15 seconds until I was sure he was gone, and then quickly washed my hands and went to see if I could see him walking in either direction, because regardless of where you go outside of the bathrooms, you'll be visible for at least a minute unless you're running, as the area is mostly open. Given the man's large, dirty work boots, I figured he'd still be visible. I looked in both directions outside the bathroom, and even looked down towards the other entrance of the trails, where he could have turned. Absolutely nothing. There were others around the park, as again it's a nice day, but probably bald or as tall as he was. Note, I'm around 6'2", and my head goes maybe an inch or two below the top of the stall. Later, I went back into the bathroom to take a closer look at the smaller stall and take a few pictures, and looked a bit into the history. I saw a message between the stalls that said BJ at Kroger's 6 to 8. I could have sworn this wasn't there when I take a look back at the stall the first time, but I 100% could have missed it. There's also graffiti that seems to be wiped off, which clearly said "fuck you" previously, and I also tried to picture where my head would be, with the feet sticking out the way they were. I wasn't able to get my feet to stick out as much as he did without my entire body touching the stall door. I also found some of the older staff have been there multiple decades, and if there is interest, I will ask if they have any similar experiences. The last note, as far as that goes, the gas smell actually seemed to have transferred. Whereas it was very clearly stronger in the smaller stall, it was much stronger in the larger stall that I was in, and more faint from the smaller stall. Now for the history, and where things get strange. As far as documented deaths themselves, there's only one death that happened at or near the parks. However, there were 2 men who attempted to lure 2 others with the promise of a drug deal in the parking lot outside the nature center, which is near the bathroom. They were both charged with attempted murder after their plans were uncovered by a patrolling police officer who exchanged fire with them. However, nobody died, unless one of the men died in prison. Finally, there's also a website of inventorial documentation of various, I assume, unmarked cemeteries around Nashville. There are a good amount of graves found around Edwin Warner Park. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Paranormal Stories, episode 331. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. If you'd be so good and you enjoyed the video, press the like button before you go. Thank you very much. Alrighty, no other business today as far as I know. Nope, no other business. So let's move right along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is, you're given the choice of 5 objects from an estate sale, right? You don't have to buy them. You can just go in and you can pick what you want from this house, this wealthy person. And they've decreed that, a certain number of people can come into the house and they can have some of these items. And you can then sell them off and be quite comfortable yourself because they're all very, very valuable. But it's guaranteed that 2 out of the 5 items you pick will be haunted because there's a lot of spooky stuff in that house. And you have to live with the items for at least a year before you can sell them. Would you be willing to do it? I think I'd probably be willing to give it a try. I look forward to reading your answers in a comment below. And with that, I'm going to head off for now, because that's the last of the recording for now. Going to wiggle my toes and finish my tea. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.